Anyway, thanks for coming.
More than welcome.
How was your train ride?
Well, it was with Tom Tate.
Did you nearly miss the train?
No, I was actually there.
It was just a wind up.
In good time.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
I did not panic at all.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks for coming. I've been waiting to have you on this for ages because you are probably, other than Tom and Dad, the most important person in terms of getting the album done, 50 years. I don't really want to talk about that today, if that's all right. What I'd like to do is get you up on another day and talk through the album track by track, if that's all right with you.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Okay. You're probably sick of thinking about it anyway. Because it was a labour of love I've established from Dad. It certainly was for me. I'm sure it was for you. But it has come out brilliantly. I've started talking about the album.
It's all right.
Anyway, what I'd like to do is just find out about like how you got involved in music, into Diejar, what you're doing now, and yeah, basically. So can you remember how you got into Diejar? What started?
Well, so my mum is a peripatetic music teacher.
Is she?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
wow.
She taught at the Wakefield Music Service.
What did she teach?
Flute, and she accompanied a lot of the students. And yeah, so I kind of, through her, I knew about Diejar for quite a while before I came along.
Did you go to that school in Wakefield where there's a lot of good musicians come out of it?
Yeah, so Pete Horsfall was, he was in Doncaster before I ever came along, but he's a couple of years older.
What was the deal with that school then? Why did so many good musicians come out of it? Well,
they had it wasn't a music-specific school, but there was a great swing band, some really good teachers.
Yeah.
There's one particular chap who was a fantastic jazz pianist, and he was really keen.
Right.
So he would lend us records and, set up small jazz combos, stuff like that, that was probably what really got me into it in the first place. And also, it was quite important really having Pete there a couple of years older, because I really looked up to him as well. So, I mean, we didn't really speak very much at that point because I was quite a bit younger. But hearing him in rehearsals, that was the thing that got me really into playing jazz, I suppose.
Did you start on trumpet?
Yeah, I had a couple of years off because I had a brace. So I got quite into jazz piano in that time.
Oh, okay.
But I started on the trumpet, and my mum was accompanying a lot at the time in Wakefield. So she accompanied Simon Cosgrove.
Wow. Yeah.
Who played alto in Doncaster, and he did the Young Musician of the Year thing. So it was sort of a thing around the house that, Doncaster's this fantastic place if you're into jazz and you want to go further with it. So we used to go and see a lot of concerts. So I saw Doncaster, I think it might have been the Jazz Orchestra in like a school hall when I was sort of 14 or 15. We'd go see Nijo if they were ever in the area. So, yeah, long before I came to any rehearsals, I knew who.
Right.
I knew about the band. It kind of had that reputation already, like, your dad, Johnny, and Dennis Rollins, they would come into certain schools and do workshops. Right. And if they did, my mum would, get me in to come along, and I'd sit at the back and sort of listen. So,
nice. Yeah,
that was kind of how I found out about the band.
Cool. So it's through your parents, both through your mum?
Yeah, mainly,
Just like me, I guess. And Tom, for that matter.
Yeah.
So you come to your first rehearsal, you start coming through the ranks. I remember, obviously I always think of Diejar or the people in Diejar in like certain generations, because I've kind of seen it all from being a baby to now. And I have these there's probably like half a dozen generations in my head that I've just created of certain eras of people. And I always think that you're like the generation below my generation. So my generation is like Cy Nixon, Anto, Damien, and then you started coming through with like the Toms and the Gazzers. And I remember seeing you, I don't know where I was, but I remember hearing you, it might have been at a rehearsal or on a gig, and already you were like playing some really good jazz. And I was like, shit, who's this guy? Like you were, and I don't know what age you were then, but you were young. So obviously you got into that really early. And I presume that the piano thing really helped with that.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think that was for sure what. I mean, because I'd played in brass bands when I was younger. That was the sort of thing that I did, and it was learning a bit of jazz piano. I think that was what got me listening primarily. So I was really into Herbie Hancock, and then by extension checking out Freddie Hubbard on those albums. So, and I was doing it a lot at school as well. But I mean, I was only ever like an ears player. I wouldn't know changes at all. And I remember that early, the first couple of rehearsals that I did with Doncaster, because I was a little bit younger than Gaz and Tom, because they were already at Leeds College and I was 15, 16, still in school. So, I mean, now obviously that doesn't feel a lot older at all, but at the time they felt light years ahead.
Right.
So I remember coming to that first rehearsal and at this point, you see, I'd heard Damien when I came along and watched the band in concert. Yeah. So I kind of knew who everybody was already before I'd met them, So I remember getting to that first rehearsal, sitting in the section, and Damien's a couple of people down, and I didn't really play very much. I kind of, it was by far the tightest band I'd ever been part of. So I remember a lot of just kind of trying to just mime or pretend that I wasn't there,
I'm sure we've all done that.
Yeah.
I still do that now.
Tell me about it. But no, I remember having a couple of lessons with Cy Nixon, and I had a couple of lessons with you as well. I remember because I couldn't read changes at all, and it was through coming to Doncaster that I got more confident improvising, because before that I gave it a go, but I wouldn't say proficient or knew what I was doing at all.
Well, you definitely improved very quickly then, because obviously, fast forward a bit. Where did you study?
Royal Academy.
Yeah, exactly.
of Music,
so you don't get in there unless you're really, 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 really good. So what happened? Obviously, you had a few lessons from different people, but at some point, something must have just gone in your head. Right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So when did that happen, and what did you do after that? How much did you practice? What did you practice? What was your approach to it?
Well, I mean, this is the thing where your dad was really important in that, for sure. Because like I said, that first rehearsal I came to, I was terrified. And, I just clung on, hope for the best. And I remember at the end of that first rehearsal, he said, do I fancy having a little solo on the blues or something? Yeah. I remember doing that. And he must have, I don't know, thought that maybe it'd be something that I'd like to do a bit more of. Because the next rehearsal, he dug out his flugelhorn. I didn't have one at the time. Right. And he had that chart, Blue, that we ended up recording in Abbey Road. Really? He said, I've got this chart. Would you like to have a go at, playing the feature?
That's your first go at a solo.
Yeah, exactly. So that was second rehearsal. I remember that. And that was what really, I remember that being quite a turning point for me, really. It gave me the confidence to think, all right, maybe I could be quite good at this if I stick at it. Yeah. And that piece, we ended up playing it at the Music for Youth in the Albert Hall. And it's weird that I still meet, a couple of my friends. It turns out they were at the Music for Youth when we did that.
Before you knew them.
Before I knew them, and they go, I remember you doing that flugel thing.
Amazing.
And which is always really nice to hear, really fond memories.
Yeah. So how old are you? You played a flugel feature at the Albert Hall. How old are you?
16, 17? 17 probably.
That must have been amazing.
Well, yeah,
And nerve-wracking
yeah, exactly,
at the same time.
Yeah, weirdly, I think I probably had more confidence then, just because, like I said, just doing it all the time. And, your dad made me he really did instill a confidence in me just by trusting me to go and, it was like when we did the Abbey Road recording and then to have that responsibility of doing that solo, and
that's one of my favourite tracks on that album. It's a brilliant
very
track.
Kind.
No, it's good.
But it gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't have naturally at all. I was a lot more shy, I suppose, than I tried to put on at the time. But yeah, we did that for the Music for Youth thing, and then I think a couple of people like Izzy Barrett who were on the panel, they heard me, and I didn't really have a teacher at the time. And and your dad was super instrumental in that. I remember Steve Wortman was up and doing some gigs, and your dad arranging that I could have a lesson with him while he was up in the, he came to the centre. And that was when I started getting serious about it. And then the teacher at school then suggested, because I knew who Gerard Presenter was, who was an amazing trumpet player, UK trumpet player and head of jazz at the Academy, was desperate to have some lessons with him.
Right.
And but Pete was having lessons with Nick Smart, who's the current head of jazz at the Academy. And he was like, he's the best trumpet teacher in the UK. You need to have lessons with him. And that was, I would say, when
it got serious.
Yeah, it got serious. So I was about 17 or 18.
Okay.
And I would travel down to London to have lessons with Nick.
Did you join Nigel as well?
Yeah, and I was doing Nigel at this point as well. And that's when I would say I started taking it, really seriously.
Amazing. So then obviously follow on from that, Royal Academy, amazing. Like just to get in there is like, that's hard to get in there. What was it like in there?
Yeah, it was, again, it was, I don't know, it was something that I'd wanted to do for so long, I think. Yeah. I think by the time I was 17 and having lessons with Nick, it felt, getting in the Academy felt like it was going to mean everything. Yeah. And it, it really did. Yeah. It was because John Escreet, who'd gone through the Jazz Association, he'd gone there. So I'd sort of seen that path as well.
Yeah. Was Nadeem then when you were there?
Yeah, Nadeem was the same year.
Right. So just for people that don't know, because not a lot of people listening to this will realise, am I right in thinking there's only one person picked per instrument at the Royal Academy per year?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will say, I think I was lucky that they hadn't had a trumpet for a couple of years at this point. So it kind of, I would say it felt like I was sort of the right place at the right time at that point, that they wanted to get a trumpet on the course. And I definitely, when I look back, like especially in Nadeem, who, was just already like
on a different planet,
like a finished article. So I think I was lucky to be able to go there and study, and I was certainly out my depth, I think, when I got there.
That's the point though, right?
Yeah.
If you weren't, you shouldn't be there. I would have thought.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a bit of a baptism by fire hearing those players, but yeah, it was incredible. And, I'd like to mention Richard Turner. I don't know if you remember him.
I do remember him. Tell us about that, because I know that was a big maybe not a turning point, but it was a very important part of your life anyway.
Yeah, that we, so again, he was another, I don't know if he came to a couple of Doncaster things at some point.
I think I met him once, but I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what it was, whether it was he depped on something, but it was in Leeds or something like that, or I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember you had that jam session that we would go down to
at Central Park. Did you do that?
Right. Yeah, which I used to come down to fairly religiously and try and drink cheap lager,
play blues and
eat curly fries, bust out my best licks on Cantaloupe Island. But yeah, I remember John Escreet was back from New York and he brought Richard, and that was another thing. Rich, that they'd both been at the Academy. And at this point, Richard's playing was really exploding a little bit, that we all knew who he was. Yeah. He had a bit of a name for himself. And I remember he came up and sat in on that jam session and just been, blown away.
Right. Was he a bit of a mentor to you after that then?
Yeah, I would go for the odd lesson at his house. And really we became kind of friends, really, more so than a mentor. But he would always give me fantastic advice, and we'd get together and practice together a little bit or whatever, and I would try and go check him out whenever he was playing in Leeds. So he was like another big figure, I would say, that sort of sealed that pathway of going to the Academy. And so I suppose when I got to the Academy, that was what I kind of wanted to do, really. I looked at what had happened to him and how his playing had, completely snowballed. And I just kind of wanted to be like the next Richard, really. I suppose that's what I was hoping for.
Well, I think you did it.
Well, I don't know about that.
Oh, well, I do. It's my podcast, so there you go. Let's talk about the writing.
Right.
Because obviously that's your thing now, is mostly writing. Like, when did you go from, so you've gone to the Academy, you want to be the next Richard Turner, you do it. You become this amazing jazz player, very much in demand. You're playing with Paloma Faith and Boy George and God knows who else. When did you start really pushing the writing, and why?
It's like most things, I think, where you have a bit of a teacher that believes in you a little bit more than you do in yourself at the time. So I was in kind of second or third year, and I'd been writing for, assignments at college.
Right.
And
is that part of the course then? You have to do that?
Have a composition and arranging sort of course that you would do with Pete Churchill, fantastic teacher and writer. And anyway, his wife is Nikki Isles, fantastic pianist and writer. And so to be quite honest with you, I was going through a bit of a phase, second, third year, where I was kind of not showing up to everything, being super late on deadlines for coursework, stuff like that. And we would have play days, and what would happen would be you'd have to write to deadline, and then your year would get together and you'd play whatever you'd written, that half term or whatever. Okay. And they would often get another tutor in to sit and kind of listen to it and give you feedback. Anyway, Nikki came into the session, and she heard what I'd written. And I remember, I think she said something like, you could be quite good at this if you were turning up to everything, I remember that being a bit of a
wake up call.
Yeah, it was. And it was,
why do you think you were slacking off a bit?
I don't know. I think
I bet it's quite intense at a place like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think I think, especially when I was younger, I was always a bit of like a homing bird. Like I would get a bit sort of homesick if I had to leave home. Okay. But then, especially being part of Doncaster, I almost swung the other way, and I would love going down to London and going and doing Nitro or going away on the trips or whatever. So I think maybe, that first kind of bit of independence and being away from home and being in London, I suppose I just ended up getting a bit caught up in all that and for a little bit forgot why I was there, at the college, which, I think everyone does that to a certain extent.
Yeah, I did that. I did the same thing. What I was getting at, I was wondering maybe, were you kind of doing so much playing? Because I sometimes get like what I call gig fatigue, when you're doing the same thing over and over again. Sometimes you want a different outlet. And I just wondered if maybe you were doing so much playing and study of changes and improv that maybe part of your brain or your soul or whatever was like, I want something else, but you didn't know what it was. And it ended up being writing,
Yeah, I would say that might be true in part. I think, there was definitely a part of playing, I think, that maybe I stopped finding as fulfilling. And the writing thing, and especially, a lot of the players that I was listening to at that point, like Kenny Wheeler, writing was such a massive part of their sound and the way that they played that that I kind of knew that had to be part of, whatever it was that I was trying to get together. I wanted the writing thing to be part of the overall kind of package or whatever it was. But it was Nikki really who properly, she kind of really forced me into it. She was like, you write a big band chart and bring it back, in a month's time. And I still remember it. I said, oh, can I do it on Sir Bailey's? And she went, no, go to the Academy store, get manuscript, and just write a chart. And when you get back, we'll play it through on the piano together. So I was playing all the brass parts, and she was doing the.
Oh, cool.
And I still remember like the odd, some bars we'd rub them out, and she would go try this and write in something slightly differently, and then over a period of not really that long, probably like maybe a couple of months. I was just totally into it. I wasn't really playing very much. I was just trying to write big band charts, get better at it,
Nice. Cool. It's something I wish I'd really got into. I did a bit of arranging at college, and I enjoyed it. And because it's a completely different from playing, because you're not on the spot, you've got time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes you think you've got time and you haven't. That's why we have deadlines, right? Because you think, oh, I'm not quite feeling it. Whereas when you're improvising, it's like there and now. You just go. It's like the opposite of improv, isn't it? Because you've got all these choices, and you can go wherever you want, and it's almost like, what do I do now? Because I could do this or I could do that. Whereas when you're playing, it's like, moment's gone.
Yeah.
What's next?
I mean, that comes with its own challenges, though. I mean, even now, I struggle with deadlines just because there are so many choices. Yeah. And when you know that you have more time to deliberate and procrastinate and decide what you're going to do, that can be a curse as well as a blessing. Yeah. And I think that was why it was so good that she was just do it.
Well, that's why we have deadlines, because I think it's human nature to not do something by the time you say you're going to do it. That's why we have them, right? Yeah. I remember I heard ages ago Quincy saying something about how the level of tech that there is now, in a studio with Logic and Pro Tools, you can do so many things. You can literally do anything that you want. He said that if he'd have been around in that era, he just wouldn't have got anything done, because he wouldn't have been able to make up his mind, because he could literally do anything that his brain, thought about.
Yeah. Well, I think about it sometimes. Teaching, there is just so much choice now, and you can go on YouTube and watch whatever you want. And I kind of remember, I mean, this is showing my age now, that there wasn't really YouTube when I was sort of, 14, 15, and trying to go on Amazon and try and see if you could get a DVD of Freddie Hubbard playing, because there was no other way for me to watch him play. I didn't really know. So, I see it with young students, especially, where you say, go away, learn a solo. And I kind of remember that feeling of someone playing me something and then having to go down to HMV in Wakefield or whatever, buy the CD and try and learn the solo. Yeah. Whereas now you can just get it straight away. Yeah. And it's so difficult, isn't it, to quite sometimes to know how to use all that technology
or to start. It's overwhelm, because it's like, especially with music. I mean, music theory is infinite, really, if you think about it. Even Train wasn't happy with what he knew. He still was searching for more. And it's like, well, if he's not happy, I'm definitely not finished. So I think that level of overwhelm is why people don't meet deadlines, because it's like, well, I could literally write anything I want. What do I do? It's, I'd be a terrible writer, because I just procrastinate anyway at the best of times. So it's just like, it's
a bit like a therapy session. I quite like it.
What do you do so let's say you've been given a brief, you've got to write some music for something. You sit down, do you do it at the piano, first of all?
Yeah.
Right. What if just like, you're not feeling it, or there's just like nothing coming out? What do you do?
Deep breath. I mean, welcome to every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that all the time, but it's, I mean, I can tell you what I do, but I can tell you also the best advice that I've been given. And that was Pete Churchill, the composition teacher at the Academy, was the inspiration doesn't come at the beginning, it comes somewhere in the middle. So the main thing is start.
Sit down and start.
And just do anything. Like, no judgment, just get stuck into it.
Yeah.
And then the inspiration comes somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing he would say was, the people that write aren't the people that have like loads of sketches or drafts of things at home. They're the people that finish things. Right. So that's another thing as well. You have to just see it through and get it finished. And then if you're not happy, you can redraft it,
That, I bet finishing stuff's hard, because most creatives are a bit sort of perfectionists, aren't we? So you're never going to be happy with it.
No, you have to learn. You have to learn to let go of it. Yeah.
That must be the hardest part, apart from the beginning and the end, actually sitting down and doing it and working through that uncomfortable, Stephen Pressfield calls it, is it the resistance or something like that?
Yeah.
It's, and then in the middle bit's the fun bit, when the muse shows up and you're into it and it's all flowing, and then it's like, well, I'm not sure if it's finished yet. It's
really difficult, but you just have to learn to let go of it. And I mean, a lot of things as well that I've definitely learned recently is you can work on something for ages and ages and ages, but you might not leave any space for the players, So sometimes you have to remember that there's a huge percentage of the piece, whether it's, 40, 50% of it, which comes after, which is where you get the players together and you allow them to do whatever they're going to do.
Okay.
And don't be too precious that, like, if there's something that's not working or something that they think of that they can, do to enhance
Add to it,
that, maybe we're going to bracket something out, or we're going to revoice something on the fly or whatever. You have to be flexible because quite often, it's that thing of you've agonized over 8 bars for 3 days.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared that if you get in a room with players and it doesn't work, you just have to brack it out,
Right.
which is horrible
I
feeling.
That is an awful feeling.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just important, leaving space for other people to, collaborate or bring their thing to it.
So on that then, do you find, I mean, obviously you've been down in London doing this for ages now, so I presume you've got like a group, a collective of your preferred musicians when you go into the studio to work on stuff. Do you, obviously they're all amazing because that's why you picked them, but do you find that it's helpful now to have certain people in the session because they're going to be upfront and say, Reuben, I don't think this bit's working, I think we should try this. Like, is that important at this level now where you're at with your career?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you develop, I suppose, a bit of a kind of a shorthand with certain people that you've listened to the same sort of stuff or you've played together quite a lot.
Right.
And, you understand how they're going to play things and they understand what you're looking for.
Okay.
And which is pretty, I mean, I find really invaluable. It was, I was away doing the Danish radio band a couple of months ago, and that was through a friend of mine, Tom Walsh, who the Doncaster, you guys all...
Who helped with the album.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic trumpet player and
amazing
writer.
Trumpet player.
Just, a whole package, fantastic. And
he came to France with us as well,
he did,
years ago.
He did. And he came out and he was playing lead trumpet on the project, which was amazing. But just having him there, you become acutely aware that it's not, you can't do these things alone. It is a team effort, and you have someone there like that who, he'll have input in the rehearsals or things that you're trying to work out, and I do think, surrendering a little bit of control, especially to the people that you trust and you really care about, it's important, and it makes the music better and people enjoy playing it more than if you start going, it's my way,
it's
or
a dictatorship.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Talk to us about that project then, because I know what it's about, but I think the listeners and the watchers would be, you've got a thing for Steely Dan, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to us about that and then tell us about the album and then tell us about the Scandinavian thing.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I mean, longer, about 10 years ago, I ended up listening to some Steely Dan stuff, and I hadn't listened to it in so long. Like, my dad had really liked it, so he'd played it in the house. So I knew their music since being quite young. And I was on tour, a friend sort of reintroduced me to it, and I remember hearing it and thinking, it'd be fantastic to try and score some of this up for big band and, see if we could, especially because those guys were so influenced anyway by kind of like the older school Hollywood arrangers and the way that they thought about music. I thought, well, I'd love to score some of this up for the big band and see what it might sound like, get my favourite players on it, and really just do something for the enjoyment of doing it. That was the main thing, because at that point I'd been on tour, like you said earlier, with Paloma and different bands, which was amazing, and I wouldn't have traded those experiences for the world. They were great, but I hadn't really done any writing or anything for myself for a while. So I thought, you know what, I love this music, I'll score it up, got my favourite players involved, and we just did like a little YouTube video. And then kind of things just snowballed from that, really. I did a couple more arrangements of which we recorded, but we went into a studio and got some guest vocalists involved. And I mean, that record hasn't come out yet. We're going to finish that this year. But Tom was out there with the Danish band, and I think he played them some of the rough mixes that I'd done. And and then they got in touch and said, would you like to bring the project out to Denmark? So I ended up going out there in February. We had a fantastic week together. It was like a real, for me, like, real life changer of a week, working with that. But incredible band and musicians, and especially, having a friend there as well, rehearsing the band and a couple of concerts. We ended up I think it was for a broadcast which went out in Denmark. So that's that project really. Cool. And I think I'm going back out beginning of next year doing it again, but around Denmark this time.
So for any Steely Dan fans listening, what tracks have you covered, if you like?
We've done a few of the major ones. So like Asia, Black Cow, Babylon Sisters, which are the kind of the fan favourites.
Black Cow's released though, isn't it?
Yeah. You can find that on YouTube.
Yeah.
But then I've done a couple of other ones which are really the pieces that I was passionate about. So there's one that's like an unreleased one that they never released. So there was a record, the last record they did together before the millennium was Gaucho in 1980.
Okay.
And it was a real sort of tortured process. I think they were both dealing with kind of like drug habits and that they weren't getting along as well as they had perhaps. And anyway, that album was touch and go, I think, to a certain extent. Anyway, there were a lot of tracks that never made it.
Okay.
So I'd recorded the Black Cow track and someone sent me an email with like a folder attached and he said, I'm assuming you've heard this. It's the unreleased Gaucho.
How did they get hold of that?
I don't know, somewhere on the dark web.
Do you know anyone directly connected to the original band? Like,
yeah, a couple of people.
Okay.
I'd got in touch with their guitarist, a guy called Steve Kahn.
Okay. What do they think of what you're doing?
Yeah, liked it.
Good.
Which is nice. It's always nice
just a relief.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a moment. But no, he's very kind, and he was really instrumental, especially when we were finding guest vocalists to be part of the tunes that I'd arranged. He was amazing. But yeah, they sent me this unreleased Gaucho, which was like, oh my God, there's a whole other album here that I've never heard. And a lot of people haven't heard.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a couple of tracks from that I arranged up and we performed.
Do you think it would get released, the original?
I don't think so. I think they, especially now Walter Becker's passed and I think they're so exacting maybe in, their output. I think.
All the more reason to check out your version then. That's a really cool story.
Yeah. It was great how it worked out, and especially, the point of the project from the very beginning really was just to do something that I was passionate about, like an outlet for my writing and arranging with all my friends, that I'm closest with.
Yeah.
So, I liked picking music from that standpoint, like, not necessarily the most famous ones or the ones that are going to get the most likes or hits or whatever, but just the ones that I thought would translate best for the band and the players that, I knew would be involved.
Brilliant. So what's next then?
So yeah, there's the another project with the Danish radio band beginning of next year. I did a project with Tom Walsh. He did half the arranging of some Herbie Hancock music. So I think we're going to try and do something with that.
Nice.
Yeah, just more of the same, I suppose.
And on a day-to-day basis, do you play much still, or is that like do you do gigs at all still?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, like for a big chunk of time, I kind of wasn't playing very much, especially. Like last year was more writing.
Yeah.
But I mean, even I hadn't really played for sort of 3 or 4 months. But even this week, I've got some stuff coming up, so I'm kind of frantically trying to get back.
Get your chops back.
Yeah, examine my mouthpiece, try and blame it on that. But can't be me. But it's nice. I mean, actually, I've got to say, I've been really enjoying it the last couple of weeks. Just getting back and playing, and
it's good to take a break sometimes. And then when you get back into it,
for sure. Yeah.
Well, listen, we're out of time, so thanks very much. Fascinating. I didn't know half of that stuff. But basically, really interesting hearing about how you come from a shy little Wakefield lad to basically...
Not that little, but definitely shy.
Shy then, to go into the Royal Academy, to, arranging Steely Dan tunes that have never seen the light of day, to working with the Danish radio big band.
Yeah.
Amazing. As well as playing with Paloma Faith. Who else have you played with that's of note that people might know of?
Noel Gallagher.
I think I've heard of him.
And Yeah, recorded on a Sam Smith track.
Really?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Wow.
So yeah, bits and bats.
Bits and bats. Just Noel Gallagher and Sam Smith and Paloma Faith. Amazing.
Oh, cheers.
Who'd have thought it all these years later that that's what you'd be doing on your trumpet and flugel?
Yeah, you just know. I mean, you just never know, do you? That's the thing. I mean, I would definitely say that for anyone who, especially if there is anyone going through the Doncaster thing now,
Yeah.
who might be checking it out, is you just don't have a clue. Like I said, when I started, I looked at Richard and Gerard, who were my sort of idols really at the time, and thought that's the path that I'm going to try and follow. And
I think if you just zoom out, it's basically about having fun. Like, you enjoyed playing trumpet in a band.
Yeah, exactly.
And it happened to be like a jazz swing type thing. And you just stuck with it. And that's, the only reason, I mean, you've obviously practiced a lot, especially when you're into the academy and you got really serious. And I've had, bouts of serious practice. But as a kid, the only reason I got any better was because I was playing all the time in bands. I wasn't practicing 2-3 hours a day like, some people did. So it's those outlets that I think are just crucial. And I don't know if you're aware of it, because I don't know if you teach much at the moment, but I've just stopped, but I was teaching a lot for a long time. There's very few kids coming through on music instruments now.
Yeah.
Very few.
Notice that. I mean, I think that's awful because, I mean, let's face it, I think Doncaster was a weirdly disproportionate that actually a lot of the kids that came through Doncaster went on to either study music or even if they didn't study it, it would be a big part of their lives.
Yeah,
right?
definitely, yeah.
But, I mean, when I teach now, I'm acutely aware that a lot of these kids aren't going to want to go and study music. Yeah. But, you hope that at the very least they have something that they can take away at the end of it where, that maybe they put on a record and they know who it is.
Yeah.
Or they appreciate jazz, or they learnt to improvise, and that made them more confident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's a huge part of the job for sure now. But ultimately, I think whether they go on to study music or not, you just want them to enjoy music, and those are even if you go on and study music, it's those people that maintain the love for it that kind of, because it's not an easy job, is it? It's difficult, and you. Believe I've had so many times where I've thought, right, that's it. I'm just not. I'm not playing a trumpet again.
Yeah, we've all done that. We've all had that.
Yeah, but it's it is that part of you that puts on a recording and is still blown. I mean, Tom and I were on the train on the way up and still put on. I'd heard a recent video Gerard and said, "Oh, you should check this out. He sounds amazing." Yeah, and it's that part of you that is still sort of interested and still gets excited. I think that's how you end up still doing it, 20, 30 years later. For sure,
Because it's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is. And like you alluded to before about how, studying music or playing music can give you more confidence, but it's like, Dad's always said, it's not really about the music, it's about the things you learn by doing the music. So teamwork, confidence, social skills, playing at the Albert Hall at how old were you? Did you say 16?
Yeah, 17.
17, 16 to 8,000 people on a feature. Like, who does that? So, yeah, that's amazing, obviously. But like you said, that gave you confidence as a person. So it's, I don't know. I just think music's bigger than just, playing and writing and stuff like that. They're the fun bits, but it's what you get out of it. And I just, 100%. Everyone that sat across this table has said a similar thing. And I just hope that our kids get to, enjoy the same thing. Sorry?
I didn't know we were expecting.
But it's only 12:30.
Yeah. Hey, there was a fantastic trumpet pedagogue in America, and I'm definitely misquoting this, but he would say, we're going to learn, patience and tenacity and, all these different qualities all through the act of playing a trumpet.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, isn't it? It's all the different skills that you have to learn, social skills.
The transferred to,
Exactly. Whether you pursue it or not, it doesn't matter. I think everyone can get something out of it.
Yeah. But I think we'll end on that because
That's quite
deep.
Optimistic
Yeah,
note.
it was. Thanks for coming.
You're more than welcome.
And next time you come up, I want to hear about the album and the unfathomable amount of hours you put into it with Tom and a few other people.
It was like childbirth. I look back on it and only have fond memories. Can't wait to do it again.
We're not doing it again.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not doing that again.
Yeah.
Buy it now.
Right.
See you later.
Yeah, bye.